Victor Strangers from Pop Preservation Society. Welcome to Australian Musician.
Thanks, Greg. Great to be here.
Before we get into talking about your label, I just wanted to get some background on yourself. I believe you were a musician back in the day.
Yes, I started playing drums when I was 11, influenced by Adam and the Ants and Peter Criss, about 50% each. And I got drum lessons for about 4 or 5 years. And I played in some garage bands, but then the first sort of band that I played live was a band called Drunk and Disorderly, or we changed it to D&D as well, and that was a punk band in the 87, 88, 89 period. So, and then I sort of realised the band was playing 3 chords and I thought I could do it as well. So I picked up the guitar in my late teens and just pursued that on and started songwriting and started my own bands, yeah.
And before that, what was the spark? Like, what was the first concert you went to?
Oh, the first big concert was Paul Young when I was 14, and that was at the Melbourne Sports and Entertainment Centre, and it was a real soul show, and it was just an amazing experience. And but I think I'd seen bands before that. I think at St Gerard's Primary School when I was a little kid, there was a band there called Tracks that played in the school hall there. I think I must have been like in 1976 or 77 or something like that when I was a little tacker. So that was pretty cool. And seeing those drums visually was just, I was in love. I thought, I've got to get one. I want to be like that.
As a young musician, do you recall trying to get some traction yourself from other labels? What kind of hurdles were you coming across?
Oh, okay. Well, I remember, Drunk and Disorderly didn't have that business acumen. We had audience pull, and we pulled some great audiences, but we only really demoed, so we never really sought a record contract, and the band sort of fell apart for various reasons, as they do. So the only time after that when I was doing my, in about 1992, I was in a group called Rainbow Snakes, which ended up being Caravan, and we were looking for a deal. I travelled to Europe just as a holiday, family holiday, but I went to England and throughout Europe and Canada as well, and I was literally in the old days dropping off demo tapes and little short bios, media sheet for the band, literally typed up, I think, and photocopied cover. And I think I can remember all the labels too. There was quite a number of them. There was Beggars Banquet, Fiction Records, which was the Cure's label. There was Go Discs, and we had a contact there, Cathal Smythe from Madness, through the drummer, but he heard the tape. But it was a case of, that sounds great, but come back to us down the track and, we want to hear more. So we weren't quite ready then. It was still early days, but yeah. It was all a mystery back in those days of how to get a deal or how to make a career out of music. But it was a lot of fun pursuing it, and I've still got the rejection letters from those, I love getting the rejection letters from Island Records. Dear Victor, we've heard your music, thank you, but no thank you, see you later. And signed the girl at the desk or the guy at the desk, yeah.
In the past, some record labels have been very influential in bringing new music to the mainstream. You mentioned Island Records, and there's Stiff Records, Epitaph, Factory Records, Rough Trade. Are you a student of labels like that, and have you studied why they worked?
Yes, well, it was someone like Rough Trade. I believe they started off from their record shop. Actually, I think I sent a demo to Rough Trade as well. It was a real organic process for them. I think it was a real being close to the bands and the fans, and it was like a labour of love. So it didn't sort of start off as a corporate consideration. It was more of an idea of, hey, let's get a label together, and that's kind of the spirit that I suppose Pop Preservation Society's gone on as well. It's not so much about, we realise you've got to put food on the table and stuff as a label, and we're working towards that, but that's not our priority at the moment. We're just investing in artists at the moment and just developing them.
So what is Pop Preservation Society, and why did you start it?
Yeah, well, Pop Preservation Society, it originally began, if I can go way back, me and my son, we started a duo called Pop Preservation Society, and we were doing sort of corporate work covers just to make ends meet and sending the kids to school and getting those extra little things for the family. It was a good way of making money, and so me and my son, we just started this duo, and we were playing classic hits, from anything from the Ramones to Frankie Valli and the Four Seasons. It was kind of really anything melodic that had harmonies. So that was the genesis of the name, and my wife came up with it actually, Nerida, she came up with the name. But then a couple of years ago, I set up a partnership with my wife, and it's only recently, the last 2 or 3 months, literally the start of this financial year, we're a private company now, registered with ASIC. And in terms of answering your question, the reason we got it together was because I'm a performer as well. I'm a songwriter, musician still. And I've got other friends and family and other people that are sort of doing music projects, and we wanted somewhere to gather those people and support them, but also having the relationships with some other contractors in the music business, producers, engineers, just some friends that I've been knocking around with for years, and some new ones, like Colin Wynn, for example, at 30 Mill Studios. He's involved. So he's actually not part of the company, for example, Colin, but he's just a valued friend and partner. So we like to, you're in business, and if you can't give your friends the work that you trust and love, and what's the point of being in business? So that's sort of the philosophy of the company. It's not so much to chase the dollar. Dollars are important, but it's sort of secondary. But yeah, so that's the genesis of it. Yeah.
Let's talk about the acts on the label. Lip Stereo is the main act, 4-piece Melbourne rock band. How did that band come together?
Well, Lip Stereo, they've been knocking about. They were a band called The Reasons in Melbourne, and pre-COVID, they actually had another drummer, Ned Sim, and pre-COVID they were starting to play shows, and then we've been in close contact, Sam being my son. Yeah, so basically they were looking for somewhere to demo, to do some recordings, and because he lived with me at the time, he doesn't live with me now. We have a rehearsal studio and recording studio at home back in the day, and he's still got that. Yeah, they were looking for somewhere to record, somewhere like a university or somewhere like that, and I thought, well, why don't we do a good recording and do your best, and I'll help finance it. So that was kind of how it started, and yeah, so we got Mark Opitz involved and sent him an email. I had never met Mark, and it turns out later that I didn't realise that him and Colin were kind of been working together for 20 years, doing a lot of work, and so that worked out really well. And he called me back the next day saying, this stuff's great, love to produce it, get in contact with Colin and we'll sort out some dates. And so in that lockdown period for 2 years, they've just been writing a whole heap of stuff. So they've probably got in the can probably about 50 or so songs. So there's a lot of material there. They just choose to play short sets. They just want to do a 30, 35 minute set just to sort of slay you in the aisle, and that's it, say goodbye type thing. But yeah, that's how we started with them. And but in terms of what we're offering, what we working with the band, and sort of going back to your initial question, Greg, was what's Pop Preservation Society about? We're kind of like a one-stop shop. So we do things like social media campaigns. We work with a company in the States called Venture Music. They're based in Nashville, and on a weekly basis we have a weekly work in progress meeting with their account manager and one of their designers, I believe it is. And then every second week we have a strategic meeting with the data guy there, the marketing guru, Dustin, who works there. And so that's working really well. So they're developing their TikTok and their social media, because we're trying to break the artists, and we're finding radio, which we've got Michael Matthews working with us. That's another component of the business. So we've got radio that we're helping them with, and design. Kiara's doing that, design for them. And there's just, we've got Anthea Palmer now, who, with Jimmy Horn at the venue, she's doing publicity and marketing for us as well now too. So the team's building, and there's a support base of really good contacts, friends, and people that are experienced in the industry moving the project forward. Yeah.
You've also got your own duo on the label, Saturday's Child with Frank Apicella, and you've got a single called Cola with Emma J singing. Tell me about Emma J.
Well, Emma J is a close friend of myself and Frank. She's actually a family friend. She's kind of a young artist that's developing, and she likes to keep incognito as far as her image, a bit like Sia, how she covered her face. We found this way of working together where she's got an incredible voice and just the most drop-dead voice, gorgeous voice you've heard, and we wanted to capture that on this particular song. But she didn't really want to go through the marketing hype of the machine of, you know, being involved and being out there at this stage, because she's sort of doing her own thing musically, and this is sort of a little bit different for her. So yeah, she's just sort of staying more in the background. And if you'll notice in the film clip on YouTube, she's actually appears in the film clip. You can only see her from here down, and yeah. So, but yeah, she's a wonderful singer and she's a songwriter, and we'll continue to work with her. She may eventually want to be up front a bit more, but the project Saturday's Child itself it's not, we're kind of agnostic to particular singers. We'll work with whatever singers as well. So, and the project's just started off, and look, I might even be singing some of the songs myself because I'm a singer as well. So, but for that particular track, we wanted Emma J to do it. So, yeah, that's how it sort of came to pass.
So what would you say the point of difference is between Pop Preservation Society and what other labels might be doing?
Well, I don't know what the other labels are doing exactly because I'm not involved in them. I've never worked for a record label. I worked in record retail. So my understanding of how the business works is fairly intuitive and just working with other people around me. And it's about, I don't know what others are doing, but I'd imagine it's artist services, which is what we do. We're first and foremost for the artists, and if we can somehow monetize that for the artists, great, you know. It's a creative pursuit first and foremost, and we believe in, you know, in messaging it out in such a way that is palatable to the public, so that there is a commercial aspect to it, but it's not the be all and end all. We may engage in projects later that are kind of a bit out there and a bit weird, but these days you can have niches in different areas. You know, you might release a Captain Beefheart style album if you really love it, you know, because I love Captain Beefheart, but it's not something that I'd push to radio necessarily. So we're kind of genre agnostic in that sense. It's not like, but there is a pop element currently it's a Pop Preservation Society. I mean, the label itself was named after, we used to listen to the Kinks, We Are the Village Green Preservation Society, and we were sitting around trying to figure out a name for the duo, and so my wife said, Pop Preservation Society. Oh, that's cool. That's a nice long name. Realise now it's too long, be it poppreservationsociety.com. Victor at Pop Preservation Society, it's just too long. But anyway, next business will be really short name.
You managed to distribute the label's music into some territories that labels normally wouldn't go into, like Croatia, West Africa, Belgium, Portugal, Lithuania. How are you able to do that?
Well, we work with Michael Matthews Media, who's been in the business for 40 years, so he's got a lot of contacts overseas, particularly in England and the States. The European market's a real developing market for us, and we're using the Play MPE platform to get it out there. And to be honest, it's to mixed success. We're still trying to work out which artists suit which markets. Like for Saturday's Child, for example, a lot of the European, like France, Belgium, Portugal, we're getting played on major radio in Portugal. I didn't even send it to Portugal initially, and they started playing it, so I don't even know how they got it, the Saturday's Child song. So, yeah, but I think that stylistically might be that sort of sound suits that area. So it's quite interesting, you know, whereas America might be a bit more of a lip stereo territory, for example, or Germany might be a bit more lip stereo, but we haven't really broken into Germany for lip stereo yet. We're still trying to find those avenues where we can get the music out to them efficiently, but I think it's not timing of the market, it's time in the market. I think the longer we stay, the more the presence is felt. I think, you know, we keep pushing this stuff out there, I think it eventually get heard. So yeah.
So many avenues to success for artists have been cut off. For instance, radio doesn't play new music. You can't make music from selling CDs because of the free streaming services. An increasing amount of venues want a cut of merchandise sales, and the touring industry is recovering from COVID. How the hell can an artist make a living from music, and what solutions does your label provide?
Yeah, well, It's like any business, Greg, because it's like if you're a printing company, and I used to work in printing, so I use that as an example, probably not a great example, but you could have, you buy a printing press and you just put it there and you say, business, come to me. It just doesn't happen that way. You've got to get a sales rep, give him a Melway and keys or a GPS and keys these days, send him out or her out, and it takes a very long time to get that flow on of that business coming in. Music's exactly the same. There's a capital requirement up front that's required that I think a lot of people don't understand. And that's something that I didn't understand for years. I thought you just get signed and as soon as you're on the radio, you're famous. It just doesn't work that way, particularly now. I think in the old days it did. I mean, I hear Michael Matthews firsthand used to tell me in the old days he used to go into like a Triple M or Eon FM and he'd literally have the vinyl single of the singles that he was promoting that week. Oh, you've got to play this one. And he'd have the meeting with the program director there and before he'd walk out, he'd hear it being played on the radio station as he's walking out through the speakers. That doesn't happen anymore. You don't have that personal relationship. So a lot of those avenues are closed to us now. But having said that, there's other opportunities in social media and TikTok, which with Lip Stereo, it's interesting. We've been doing some advertising on TikTok. We're just started. And we're actually getting fans coming to gigs from TikTok. A couple of guys at a gig we did recently came from a TikTok ad, a TikTok reel that they put up. And I found that incredible because I said to the band, oh, if you've got X amount of followers, imagine if you 10x that, you might get 20 people to the gig. And if you 100x that, you could get 200 people. See how the maths work. So it's a very real way of measuring. Whereas with radio, it's a bit of a mystery. They play it. Who listens to it? I don't know. And to be honest, I think radio, the challenge with radio is I actually think, well, I was talking to somebody last night, a close friend of mine who's very in the radio industry. He's been around for a very long time and he knows about all the measurements they do on radio and who listens to it. They do not measure the number of people that actually listen to it or they don't disclose it or they just refuse to measure it because I believe, this is only anecdotal, this is my opinion, I think it's not even a quarter of it was 20 years ago, maybe 10%. I don't know, maybe I'm totally wrong. I don't think that radio leads, radio follows. And I know that for a fact because we've sent out some material to some formats of stations that we believe would really work for some of the material. Oh, and they say, oh, look, that's really good, we like it. It's quite not right for our station, but come back to us if something happens. It's like, hang on, that's not my job. I've presented the product, do you like it or not? Do you think, use your ears, but that doesn't work that way. I think the way they work is they'll probably look at, oh, who's this artist? They've got, 250,000 Facebook followers, they've got 500,000 Instagram. Yeah, we'll play their song because we can grab some of that market listening to our station. They don't look at business development in the music industry, which is the hardest part of the industry, I believe, it's like any business, like when you start in printing as a sales rep, it's exactly the same thing. The hardest business is new business. But I think they've let go of that. And I think for radio, its days are numbered to an extent because with the emergence of digital technology, and I think moving forward, if you've studied marketing, the Boston portfolio matrix, I'm speaking to a small niche here, you've got, a growing market and then you've got a maturing market and then you got a market that's a cash cow, you just cash cow it, you get all the cash you can out of it but don't develop it, and then you got the decline. I think we're somewhere in between cash cow and sort of decline now. And I don't think they're interested, it's not music radio anymore. To quote my friend, not verbatim, but he said something like, the way they do radio is they try and maximise the number of ads they have on there and they'll stretch it as much as they can and have a song that'll keep them there. But, not too much song, but another ad. That's how they look at it. And that's kind of like, it's a bit boring. Doesn't interest me. So we're looking at other avenues and we want to develop some new things we're looking at in the background at the moment, but it's still a bit early days to talk about those yet.
So what's the grand plan for Pop Preservation Society?
Yeah, well, it's to be a home to artists that, in whatever they do, that they do it to the best of their ability, and it's a real thing that they want to pursue for life, and that they're willing to invest in themselves and invest the time. We find with artists that they expect the label to do a lot of the heavy lifting, But when you get a team of people that are a band or an artist that's doing a lot of the heavy lifting themselves, that really works, and you need both of those sides these days. Whereas in the old days, a lot of that you'd be told that go to this interview, go to that, and whereas now you literally got to put yourself out there, your own TV show virtually on TikTok, so people get to know your personality. So that's how we're sort of currently developing artists. I'm sure there's going to be different ways, but in terms of the grand plan, we just want to be at the cutting edge of where things are going. You know, whether they be in the future of, you know, your cryptocurrencies and things like that, we'll probably get involved in that as well at some stage, but not quite yet. Possibly in the next 12 months or so, there'll be some sort of offering we'll have there. Not with NFTs necessarily. I don't really like NFTs. It's a picture of a JPEG loosely related to a serial number on the internet that may or may not be hosted. So you don't really own it. So I don't follow that. But in terms of, what we want to do is really just put out good art, good music, great songs. The holy grail for me is songs, because songs, you know, it's like when, I think it was Kanye West did a YouTube video, a music video with Paul McCartney, and on the internet everyone's going, who's the old dude? They won't know who he is, but they'll remember the songs. And to me it's about the songs, because I believe the songs sort of take you there. So anything to do with songs, I'll always be there. Not so much sound effects and things like that, but just good songwriting, going back to that evergreen period where just great art. Yeah, that's where we want to be.
Victor Strange, thanks for joining us.
Thank you. Thanks, Greg.